A barefoot African boy walked into the richest bank in the city. His clothes had holes, his shoes were broken, and everyone stared at him like he was garbage. One millionaire laughed at him, called him a beggar, a street rat, told security to throw him out. But when the boy handed over his father's old bank card, the manager's face turned white. The millionaire stopped laughing, and the screen showed a number that made everyone in that room go silent. What did they see on that screen? It changed everything. This boy wasn't who they thought he was, and by the end of this story, you'll understand why money means nothing if you have no heart. Watch until the end, trust me. This one will stay with you, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch more inspiring stories like this one. Get this dirty little rat out of my bank. The words hit harder than a slap. They echoed off the marble walls and crystal chandeliers of First National Bank. Every single person in that building froze. Tellers stopped counting money. Security guards stopped walking. Customers stopped breathing. And one man in a three-piece Italian suit laughed so hard that champagne nearly came out of his nose. But that laugh would die in exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Because the screen was about to reveal a secret that had been buried for 3 long years. And the barefoot African boy standing at the counter with dirt on his face and holes in his shirt. He was about to become the most powerful person in that room. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back to a small village called Mwamba, nestled between green hills and dusty roads, about 60 kilometers from the gleaming city where the First National Bank stood like a temple of money and power. Samuel Ademi was 11 years old. His skin was dark as midnight, smooth and beautiful like polished ebony. His eyes were large and curious, always watching, always learning. And his smile, when it came, could make flowers bloom in the desert. But Samuel didn't smile much these days. He lived in a small house at the edge of the village. The walls were made of mud and cement. The roof was corrugated iron, rusted brown in patches where the rain had been unkind. The windows had no glass, just wooden shutters that creaked in the wind. And the front door had a broken hinge that made it hang crooked, like a tired old man leaning against a wall. But to Samuel, this broken little house was everything. It was home. He lived here with his grandmother, Martha. She was 72 years old now, though she looked older. Life had not been gentle with her. Her hair was white like fresh cotton, twisted into small braids that she tied with colorful threads. Her hands were wrinkled and spotted with age, but they were still strong enough to cook, to clean, to hold Samuel when he cried at night. And her heart was the biggest thing about her, bigger than the house, bigger than the village, bigger than all the money in all the banks in the world. Every morning, before the roosters even thought about crowing, Samuel would wake up. He would slip out of his thin mattress on the floor. He would walk quietly past his grandmother's room, listening to make sure she was still breathing. Then he would go outside. First, he fetched water from the well. It was a 15-minute walk each way, and the bucket was heavy, but Samuel never complained. His father had taught him that complaining was for people who had given up, and Samuel would never give up. Then he swept the yard. Every leaf, every twig, every piece of garbage that the wind had blown in overnight. He swept it all into a neat pile and burned it in the corner. Then he made tea, not fancy tea with milk and sugar like rich people drank, just hot water with dried leaves from the bush behind the house. It tasted like earth and rain and home, and then, only then, would he wake his grandmother. "Good morning, Grandma," he would say, kneeling beside her bed. Martha would open her eyes slowly. She would smile at him. And no matter how much pain she was in, no matter how tired she felt, she would say the same thing every single morning. "Good morning, my blessing. God kept us another day." They would sit together on the small porch, watching the sun rise over the hills. Martha would hold her cup of tea with both hands, feeling the warmth seep into her old bones. And she would tell stories. Oh, how she loved to tell stories. Her favorite stories were about Samuel's father, Joseph. "Your father was a dreamer," she would say, her eyes getting that faraway look. "From the moment he was born, I knew he was different. He didn't cry like other babies. He just looked around with those big eyes, like he was already planning something." Samuel would lean closer, even though he had heard these stories 100 times before. He grew up right here in this village, Martha continued. Same house, same dusty roads, same thing. But your father, he saw something that nobody else could see. He saw the possibility. What did he do, Grandma? He worked. Lord, how that boy worked. He would wake up before dawn and go to bed after midnight. He helped farmers with their crops. He fixed bicycles for the traveling merchants. He taught himself to read by borrowing books from the missionary school, and every single coin he earned, he saved. Martha would pause here, taking a sip of her tea. When he was 18, he came to me. He said, Mama, I'm going to the city. I'm going to build something. I'm going to make you proud. Everyone in the village laughed at him. They said he was foolish. They said he would fail. They said he would come crawling back with nothing. But he didn't, Samuel said. No, my child, he didn't. Martha's eyes would shine with pride. Your father went to that city with $20 in his pocket and a fire in his heart. He slept on the streets for the first month. He ate one meal a day, but he never stopped working, never stopped believing. She would reach over and touch Samuel's face. And slowly, very slowly, he built something, first a small shop, then a bigger shop, then a warehouse, then a company. By the time he was 30, your father was one of the richest men in the region. But you know what? He never changed. He was still the same humble boy from Mwamba, still kind, still generous, still remembering where he came from. Samuel loved these stories. They made him feel connected to a father he barely remembered. They gave him hope that maybe, just maybe, he could be something too. But the stories always ended the same way, with the night that changed everything. 3 years ago, a rainy night in November, Joseph and his wife, Elizabeth, were driving home from a business meeting in the capital. The roads were slippery. The visibility was poor, and somewhere on that dark, winding highway, something went terribly wrong. The police said it was an accident. The brakes failed. The car went off the road. By the time help arrived, it was too late. Samuel was 8 years old when the police officer came to their door. He remembered the moment like it was yesterday, the sound of the rain on the iron roof, the flicker of the kerosene lamp, the look on his grandmother's face when she opened the door and saw the officer standing there with his hat in his hands. She knew. Before he even spoke, she knew. Martha fell to her knees right there in the doorway. She screamed a scream that Samuel would hear in his nightmares for years to come, a scream of pure, raw, unbearable loss. And Samuel just stood there, frozen, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to understand why his world was suddenly falling apart. The funeral was held 3 days later. Half the village came. People Samuel had never seen before showed up in expensive cars and expensive clothes, crying expensive tears. They said nice things about Joseph and Elizabeth. They shook Martha's hand and told her how sorry they were. And then they left, and everything changed. In the weeks after the funeral, Samuel learned a hard truth about the world. People only care about you when you have something they want. When Joseph was alive, their house was always full of visitors, business partners, friends, relatives who suddenly remembered they were related. Everyone wanted a piece of Joseph Adami's success, but after he died, silence. The visitors stopped coming, the phones stopped ringing, the letters stopped arriving. It was like Joseph had never existed, like his life had been erased from the world. And the money that everyone said Joseph had, where was it? Martha didn't know. She had never handled the finances. Joseph had always taken care of everything. She assumed there were bank accounts, investments, properties, but she didn't have access to any of it. That's when Thomas appeared. Thomas Mensa, a tall, thin man with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He said he was Joseph's accountant. He said he had been managing Joseph's finances for years. He said he was there to help. Don't worry about anything, Mama, Thomas told Martha in those first terrible weeks. I'll handle all the paperwork. I'll make sure the family is taken care of. Martha was too grief-stricken to question him. She signed the papers he put in front of her. She gave him access to whatever he asked for. She trusted him completely. Months passed, then a year, then 2 years, then 3, and still no money came. Every time Martha asked Thomas about the inheritance, he had an excuse. The lawyers were still working on it. The courts were backed up. The paperwork was complicated. Just a little more time, Mama. Just a little more patience. Meanwhile, their situation grew worse and worse. The savings Joseph had left in the house ran out. The relatives who had promised to help disappeared. The village that had once celebrated the Adami family now whispered about how far they had fallen. Martha and Samuel learned to survive on almost nothing. They ate one meal a day, sometimes less. They wore the same clothes until they fell apart. They couldn't afford medicine when they got sick. They couldn't afford school fees for Samuel. They couldn't afford anything. And through it all, Samuel kept one thing with him, his father's wallet. It was an old leather wallet, brown and cracked, worn smooth by years of use. Joseph had carried it every day of his adult life. Inside, there was a photograph of Joseph and Elizabeth on their wedding day, smiling like they had the whole world ahead of them. And there was a bank card, First National Bank. The letters were faded but still readable. Samuel didn't know if the card still worked. He didn't know if there was any money in the account. Martha told him not to get his hopes up. She said Thomas had probably taken everything by now, but Samuel kept the wallet anyway. He slept with it under his pillow every night. It was his connection to his father, his proof that once his family had been something. And sometimes, late at night, when the world was quiet and the stars were bright, Samuel would take out the wallet and look at his father's picture and whisper, "I'll make you proud, Papa. I promise." He just didn't know that the chance to keep that promise was coming sooner than he ever imagined. In the morning, everything changed like any other morning. Samuel woke up before dawn. He fetched water. He swept the yard. He made tea. He went to wake his grandmother, but something was different. Martha was still in bed, but she wasn't sleeping. She was coughing, deep, rattling coughs that shook her whole body. Her face was pale. Her forehead was burning with fever. And when Samuel touched her hand, it was cold as ice. "Grandma," Samuel's voice trembled. "Grandma, what's wrong?" "It's nothing, child," Martha wheezed. "Just a little cold, I'll be fine." But she wasn't fine. Samuel could see it in her eyes. The same eyes that had always been so strong, so full of life. Now they looked tired, defeated, like a candle that was slowly running out of wax. "We need to get you to a doctor," Samuel said. Martha shook her head. "Doctors cost money, money we don't have." "But Grandma," I said no. Her voice was firm, even through the coughing. "We'll manage, we always manage." Samuel didn't argue, but inside something was breaking. He spent the morning by her bedside, giving her water, wiping her forehead with a damp cloth. The coughing continued. If anything, it got worse. By noon, Martha could barely breathe. And then, while Samuel was in the kitchen heating some soup, he heard a crash. He ran back to the bedroom. Martha was on the floor. She had tried to get up and collapsed. Her eyes were closed. Her body was limp. "Grandma," Samuel dropped to his knees beside her. He lifted her head into his lap. He screamed for help. The neighbors came running. Mrs. Okafor from next door, old Mr. Diallo from across the road, the school teacher's wife. They all crowded into the small room, talking over each other, arguing about what to do. Someone sent for the village nurse. She arrived 20 minutes later, out of breath from running. She examined Martha carefully, checking her pulse, listening to her breathing, feeling her forehead. When she stood up, her face was grim. "She needs medicine," the nurse said. "Strong medicine, and she needs to see a real doctor in the city." "Soon? How soon?" Samuel asked. "Within the week, maybe less if we wait too long." The nurse didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "How much will it cost?" The nurse looked at Samuel, his ragged clothes, at his bare feet, at the broken-down house around them, and her eyes filled with pity. "More than you have, child, I'm sorry." That night, Samuel sat on the porch alone. The stars were out. Millions of them, scattered across the black sky like diamonds on velvet. His father used to say that every star was a dream waiting to come true. You just had to believe hard enough. But what good was believing when your grandmother was dying and you couldn't do anything to save her? Samuel cried that night, silent tears that rolled down his cheeks and dripped onto the dusty ground. He cried for his grandmother. He cried for his parents. He cried for himself and the cruel, unfair world that had taken everything from him. And then, somewhere in the darkness, something shifted. He stopped crying. He wiped his face. and he remembered the wallet. His father's wallet, with the bank card inside. What if there was money in that account? What if, after all these years, something was still there? Even a little bit would help. Even a few dollars could buy some medicine, could pay for a bus ride to the city, could give Martha a fighting chance. It was a long shot. Martha had said Thomas probably took everything. But what if she was wrong? What if there was something left? Samuel had to try. He went inside and found the wallet under his pillow. He held it in his hands, feeling the worn leather, tracing the cracks with his fingers. "Help me, Papa," he whispered. "Please, help me save Grandma." The next morning, before anyone else was awake, Samuel got dressed. He put on his cleanest shirt, a faded blue button-up with a small hole near the bottom. He wore his only pair of shoes, brown leather hand-me-downs that were 2 sizes too big and had holes in the soles. He splashed water on his face and tried to smooth down his hair. He looked in the cracked mirror by the door. He didn't look like much, just a poor village boy with nothing to his name, but he had his father's wallet, and he had hope. He went to Martha's bedside. She was awake, barely. "Grandma," he said softly, "I'm going to the city, to the bank. I want to check if Papa left anything in his account." Martha's eyes widened. She tried to speak, but the coughing took over. When it finally stopped, she grabbed Samuel's hand. "Child, there's nothing there. Thomas took everything. Don't waste your time. I have to try, Grandma, for you." Tears leaked from Martha's eyes. "You're just like your father, stubborn, brave, foolish." Samuel smiled. "I'll be back before dark. I promise." He kissed her forehead and walked out the door. The bus stop was a 30-minute walk from the village. Samuel had just enough coins in his pocket, money he had been saving from doing odd jobs for the neighbors, to pay for a one-way ticket to the city. He didn't know how he would get back home. He didn't care. All that mattered was the bank, and the card, and the hope, however small, that his father had left something behind. The city was like nothing Samuel had ever seen. The bus dropped him off at a busy intersection with cars and motorcycles, and trucks all honking and weaving around each other like angry bees. The buildings were tall. Some of them had more floors than Samuel could count. The sidewalks were crowded with people walking fast, talking into phones, carrying briefcases and shopping bags. Nobody looked at Samuel. Or rather, everyone looked at him and immediately looked away, like he was invisible, like he didn't belong. Samuel asked for directions to First National Bank. Some people ignored him, some people laughed. One woman pointed vaguely toward the east and told him it was about 10 blocks that way. It took him almost 2 hours to find it. When he finally stood in front of the building, his breath caught in his throat. First National Bank was the most beautiful building Samuel had ever seen. It was made of glass and steel, rising up toward the sky like a giant crystal. The walls sparkled in the morning sun. The doors were so clean you could see your reflection in them, and above the entrance, carved in gold letters, were the words, "First National Bank, since 1952. Samuel stood there for a long moment, just staring. People in expensive suits walked past him, in and out of the building. Men in ties that probably cost more than Samuel's entire house. Women in high heels that clicked on the marble steps like tiny hammers. They all moved with confidence, with purpose, with the easy arrogance of people who had never been hungry a day in their lives. Samuel looked down at himself, his worn shirt, his 2 big shoes, his dusty skin. He didn't belong here, he knew that. Anyone with eyes could see that, but his grandmother was dying, and he had no choice. He took a deep breath, he squared his shoulders, and he walked toward the entrance. The security guard at the door was a big man with broad shoulders and suspicious eyes. He looked at Samuel the way you might look at a cockroach that had crawled into your kitchen. "Where do you think you're going?" the guard asked. "Inside," Samuel said. "I need to check my account." The guard laughed. "Your account? You have an account here. My father did. He passed away. I have his bank card." The guard's eyes narrowed. He looked Samuel up and down, clearly expecting to find something wrong. But Samuel just stood there calmly, waiting. Finally, the guard shrugged and stepped aside. "Fine, but if you cause any trouble, you're out. Understand?" Samuel nodded and walked through the doors. Inside, the bank was even more impressive than the outside. The floors were made of white marble, polished so bright you could see your reflection. The ceilings were high, with enormous chandeliers hanging down like frozen waterfalls of light. The walls were lined with paintings in gold frames, serious-looking men in serious-looking suits, probably the founders and presidents of the bank. And everywhere, there were rich people. Samuel could tell they were rich by the way they moved, by the way they talked, by the way they looked at him when he walked past. Looks of confusion, looks of disgust, looks like that said, "What is this dirty creature doing in our temple?" Samuel ignored them all. He walked straight to the main counter, where a long line of customers was waiting. He joined the line. The minutes passed slowly. Samuel's heart was beating fast, but he forced himself to stay calm. He watched the tellers working behind their windows. He watched the customers handing over checks and documents. He tried to learn, to understand, to figure out how this world worked. He was almost at the front of the line when he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned around. A man stood there, the most intimidating man Samuel had ever seen. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a thick neck. His suit was dark blue, perfectly fitted, with a subtle pinstripe pattern. His watch was gold and heavy, probably worth more than Samuel's entire village. His shoes were shiny black leather, polished to a mirror shine. And his face was hard and cold, like it had been carved from stone. But it was his eyes that really scared Samuel. They were small and dark, with a glint of cruelty in them, the eyes of a predator. The eyes of someone who enjoyed causing pain. "Boy," the man said. His voice was deep and smooth, like a snake sliding through grass. "What exactly are you doing here?" Samuel met his gaze without flinching. "I'm waiting in line, sir. I need to check my account balance." The man's eyebrows shot up. Then he laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. It wasn't even a mocking laugh. It was a cruel laugh, designed to hurt, to humiliate, to crush. "Your account balance." The man turned to the other customers in line. "Did you hear that, everyone? This little street rat says he wants to check his account balance." A few people chuckled nervously. Most just stared, uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. "This is First National Bank," the man continued, turning back to Samuel. "This is where the money is, real money. Not whatever pennies you might have scraped together from begging on the street." "I'm not a beggar," Samuel said quietly, "and I have a bank card." He pulled out his father's wallet and showed the card. The man looked at it for a second. Then he laughed even harder. "That card looks older than you are, boy. It's probably expired or stolen." His eyes narrowed. "Yes, that's it, isn't it? You stole it. You're a little thief." "It's not stolen," Samuel said. "It was my father's. He died 3 years ago. I just want to check if there's any money left, that's all." "Your father?" The man's voice dripped with sarcasm. "And who was your father?" "The king of the beggars. The president of the slum. His name was Joseph Adami." The words came out calm and clear. Samuel didn't shout. He didn't cry. He just stated a fact. But something happened in the room when he said that name. A few of the older tellers looked up from their work. Their faces changed. Recognition, surprise, confusion. One of them whispered something to another. The man in the expensive suit didn't notice. He was too busy enjoying himself. "Joseph Adami," he repeated mockingly. "Never heard of him. Probably nobody died in a ditch somewhere." He looked at his watch impatiently. "Listen, boy, I don't have time for this. I'm Victor Camo. I have over $4 million in this bank. I have meetings to attend, important meetings, and I'm not going to waste another second standing behind a little beggar in a line." He snapped his fingers at the security guards. "Get this dirty little rat out of my bank." The guards started moving towards Samuel, and that's when a voice called out from one of the teller windows. "Wait." Everyone turned. A woman was standing behind counter number 3. She was in her 30s, with kind eyes and a gentle face. Her name tag said Rebecca, and she was looking at Samuel with an expression that was completely different from everyone else in the room. She wasn't looking at him with disgust or pity or fear. She was looking at him with respect. "I'll help this young man," Rebecca said firmly. "Victor, if you want faster service, you can use the VIP lounge on the 3rd floor. I'm sure they'll be happy to accommodate you there." Victor's face turned red. "How dare you?" "I dare," Rebecca interrupted, Because this is a bank, Victor, not your private playground. Everyone who walks through those doors is a customer. Everyone deserves service, even a child. If you're listening to this story right now, I want you to think about something. Have you ever been judged by how you look? Have you ever been dismissed before you even had a chance to speak? And have you ever met someone like Rebecca, someone who stood up for you when everyone else was looking the other way? Hold on to those people. They're rare and they're precious. Victor stood there for a moment, his jaw clenched, his fists tight. For a second, Samuel thought he might do something violent, but then Victor just sneered. "Fine," he said, "help your little beggar, but when his account shows 0, I want security to throw him out. And I never want to see his face in here again." He turned and walked toward the elevators, his expensive shoes clicking on the marble floor. Samuel watched him go, then he turned and walked to Rebecca's counter. His hands were shaking, his heart was pounding, but he kept his head high. "Thank you," he said quietly. Rebecca smiled. "Don't thank me yet. Let's see what we can find." Rebecca took the old bank card and examined it carefully. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw it. "This is one of our legacy cards," she said. "We stopped using this design about 5 years ago. It's definitely old. Can you still check it?" Samuel asked. "Let me try." She swiped the card through her machine. The computer beeped and made a strange sound. Rebecca said. "The system is flagging it. It needs manager verification." She picked up her phone. "Mr. Marcus, this is Rebecca at counter 3. I have a customer here with a legacy account. The system needs your approval. Could you come down?" "Thank you." While they waited, Samuel could feel eyes on him. The other customers were staring. The security guards were watching. And somewhere in the back, Victor had stopped by the elevators and was also looking, a smug expression on his face. Let him look, Samuel thought. Let them all look. They'll see. A few minutes later, a man in a grey suit appeared. He was in his 50s, with a bald head and sharp eyes behind silver glasses. His name tag said Marcus Branch Manager. "What do we have here?" Marcus asked. Rebecca explained the situation. Marcus took the card and looked at it. Then he looked at Samuel. "Where did you get this card, young man?" "It was my father's," Samuel said. "His name was Joseph Adami. He died 3 years ago. I just want to check if there's any money in his account. My grandmother is sick. She needs medicine." Marcus didn't react at first. He just stood there holding the card, staring at Samuel. And then his face went pale, not a little pale, completely pale, like all the blood had drained out of his head. What did you say your father's name was?" "Joseph Adami." Marcus grabbed the edge of the counter. His hand was shaking. "Oh my God," he whispered. The room went silent. Even Victor stopped smirking. "Mr. Marcus?" Rebecca asked, concerned. "Are you okay?" Marcus didn't answer. He was still staring at Samuel like he was seeing a ghost. "Come with me," Marcus finally said. "Both of you, right now." He turned and walked toward the elevators. His steps were unsteady, like a man in shock. Samuel looked at Rebecca. She looked just as confused as he felt. But they followed. Victor stepped forward as they passed him. "What's going on?" he demanded. "Who is this kid? Why is the branch manager?" "Not now, Victor," Marcus said without stopping. "This doesn't concern you. Everything in this bank concerns me. I have 4 million. I don't care if you have 4 billion, Marcus snapped. "Step aside." Victor's mouth fell open. In all his years of banking here, no one had ever spoken to him like that. But Marcus was already in the elevator. Rebecca and Samuel stepped in behind him. The doors closed. And as the elevator rose, Samuel could see his reflection in the polished metal walls. A poor boy in worn clothes, holding an old wallet, surrounded by rich people and expensive things. He had no idea what was about to happen. But he had a feeling that his life was about to change forever. Marcus's office was on the top floor. It was a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the entire city. The buildings stretched to the horizon. The cars below looked like ants. The clouds seemed close enough to touch. Samuel had never been so high up in his life. He walked to the window and stared out, momentarily forgetting everything else. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Marcus said softly. "Your father used to stand at that exact window. He said it reminded him how far he had come." Samuel turned around. You knew my father? Marcus sat down heavily behind his desk. He suddenly looked very old. I'm very tired. Knew him? Marcus laughed sadly. I practically grew up with him. Not literally, I'm older than he was, but professionally, I was here when Joseph walked into this bank for the first time. He was 25 years old. He had nothing, just $100 and a dream. Samuel sat down slowly in the leather chair across from Marcus. I remember thinking he was crazy, Marcus continued. This young man from some village I'd never heard of, talking about building an empire. Most people would have laughed him out of the room, but there was something in his eyes, something that made you believe. What happened? He did it. Everything he said he would do. He started small, a little trading business, buying things in one place and selling them in another. Then he expanded. Then he expanded again. Within 10 years, he was one of our biggest clients. Within 15 years, he was one of the richest men in the region. Marcus opened a drawer and pulled out a photograph. He handed it to Samuel. It was a picture of two men shaking hands in front of a building. One of them was Marcus, younger and with more hair. The other was a tall, handsome man with kind eyes and a warm smile. Joseph Adami, Samuel's father. Samuel touched the photograph gently, like he was afraid it might disappear. He was a good man, Marcus said. The best man I ever knew. He never forgot where he came from. He donated money to schools and hospitals. He helped young entrepreneurs get started. He treated everyone with respect and kindness. What happened when he died? Marcus's face darkened. That's where things get complicated. He turned to his computer and typed something. After the accident, your father's estate was supposed to be handled by his accountant, a man named Thomas Mensa. Samuel nodded. I know Thomas. He's been helping my grandmother. Has he? Marcus's voice was cold. Let me show you something. He turned the computer screen so Samuel could see. It was a bank statement, columns of numbers that Samuel didn't understand, but one number at the bottom stood out. $12,457,843. That, Marcus said, is the current balance of your father's primary account. Samuel couldn't speak. He couldn't breathe. He just stared at the number. $12 million. 3 years ago, Marcus continued, after your father died, Thomas came to us. He had documents, signed papers. He said the family didn't want access to the accounts right now. He said there were legal complications. He said the money should be frozen until everything is sorted out. That's a lie, Samuel whispered. We never got any money. We've been starving. My grandmother is dying. I know, Marcus's voice cracked. I should have checked more carefully. I should have contacted your grandmother directly, but Thomas had all the right paperwork, all the right signatures. I trusted him. He stood up and walked to the window. For 3 years, that money has been sitting here, frozen, untouched. And all that time, you and your grandmother were suffering because of my failure. Because I didn't do my job. Samuel looked at the number again. $12 million. Enough to save his grandmother 1,000 times over. Enough to rebuild their house. Enough to change their lives completely. All this time, all this suffering. And the money was just sitting here. Something inside Samuel broke. Not in a bad way, in a necessary way. Like a bone that had healed wrong and needed to be broken again to be set right. He understood now. He understood how the world really worked. Money was power, and someone had stolen his family's power, stolen their future. Left them to rot while millions of dollars collected dust in a computer. I want my money, Samuel said. His voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. I want every penny that belongs to my family. And I want to know everything Thomas has done. Marcus turned around. There were tears in his eyes. You'll have it, he said. All of it, I promise you that. But first, there's something else you need to know. He sat back down and leaned forward. Thomas has been trying to access this account for years. He's submitted dozens of requests, but he can't do anything without your verification. My verification? Your father set up the account in a specific way. After his death, primary access would transfer to his son. To you, Thomas needs your signature, your presence, your approval to touch a single cent. Samuel understood now why Thomas had been so helpful to his grandmother. Why did he keep coming around? Why did he keep asking about paperwork and documents? He wasn't trying to help. He was trying to steal. There's more, Marcus said. I've been doing some digging over the past few years. Thomas isn't just stealing from your family. He's been embezzled from dozens of clients. He has partners in the legal system, maybe even in the police. He's very dangerous. I don't care, Samuel said. He hurt my family. He's going to pay, Marcus nodded slowly. I was hoping you'd say that, because I want to help you. Consider it penance for my failures. He pressed a button on his desk. Rebecca, please come in and bring the verification forms. We have work to do. The next few hours were a blur of paperwork and explanations. Rebecca helped Samuel sign the necessary documents. Marcus verified everything on his end. The account was officially transferred to Samuel's name. Samuel made his first withdrawal, $10,000, enough for his grandmother's medicine, for a good doctor, for whatever she needed. The money was placed in a secure envelope and locked in a small safe that Marcus gave him. This is yours, Marcus said. The rest is safe in the account. Whenever you need it, you can access it. But for now, let's focus on getting you home safely. What about Thomas? Leave that to me, Marcus said grimly. I'm going to start an investigation, but it will take time. These things need to be done carefully. If Thomas suspects anything, he might run, or worse. Samuel nodded. He was exhausted, emotionally drained, but also, for the first time in 3 years, hopeful. They took the elevator back down to the main floor. The bank was emptier now. It was almost closing time, but a few people still lingered, including Victor. The millionaire was standing near the entrance, talking on his phone. When he saw Samuel emerge with Marcus and Rebecca, he ended the call and walked over. So, Victor said, what was all that about? Is the beggar finally being thrown out? Samuel looked at him calmly. Marcus stepped forward. Mr. Camau, I'd like you to meet Samuel Adami. His father was Joseph Adami. Perhaps you've heard of him. Victor's face went blank. Joseph Adami, one of the most successful businessmen in the region, a client of this bank for over 2 decades, and the owner of an account worth over $12 million. Victor's phone slipped from his hand. It clattered on the marble floor, but he didn't seem to notice. 12 million? That's right. Marcus put a hand on Samuel's shoulder. This beggar you were mocking is worth 3 times what you are, Victor. And unlike you, he earned every penny through his father's hard work and sacrifice. Victor's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Samuel walked past him toward the door, but he stopped and turned around. Mr. Victor, he said quietly, my father taught me something. He said, the way you treat people who can do nothing for you tells the world who you really are. He paused. I know who you are now, and I feel sorry for you. He walked out of the bank and into the afternoon sun. Behind him, Victor stood frozen, staring at the door long after it had closed. Samuel didn't go home right away. He found a quiet bench in a park near the bank and sat down. He needed to think, to process everything that had happened. $12 million. His father had left him $12 million. And all this time, Thomas had been trying to steal it. Thomas, who came to their house with his fake smiles and his fake concern. Thomas, who watched Samuel and Martha suffer and did nothing. No, not nothing. Thomas had caused the suffering. He had made sure they couldn't access the money. He had kept them poor and desperate so that eventually, when they were broken enough, they would sign whatever he wanted. Anger burned in Samuel's chest, hot and fierce. But there was fear too. Marcus had said Thomas was dangerous, that he had connections, that he might do something desperate if he found out. Samuel needed to be careful. He needed to protect his grandmother. He stood up and started walking toward the bus station, but he didn't get far. A black car pulled up beside him. The window rolled down. Thomas was inside. Hello, Samuel, Thomas said. His voice was smooth, friendly, but his eyes were cold. What a surprise to see you here, in the city, so far from home. Samuel's blood ran cold, but he kept his face calm. Hello, Uncle Thomas. I was just at your house. Your grandmother said you went to check on your father's old bank account. Thomas smiled. Did you find anything interesting? Samuel's mind raced. Did Thomas know? How much did he know? Nothing, Samuel said carefully. The account was empty, just like you said. Thomas studied him for a long moment. His smile didn't waver, but something shifted in his eyes. "That's too bad," he said. "I was hoping there might be something left. For your grandmother's medicine, we'll manage. Will you?" Thomas opened the car door. "Get in, I'll give you a ride home." Every instinct in Samuel's body screamed no, but what could he do? Refuse and make Thomas suspicious? Run and confirm that he was hiding something? He got in the car. The drive was silent at first. Thomas kept his eyes on the road. Samuel kept his eyes on the window, watching the city give way to the countryside. "You know," Thomas finally said, "your father and I were very close. He trusted me with everything, his businesses, his money, his family. I know. When he died, I made him a promise. I promised to take care of you and your grandmother, to make sure you were provided for. You've been very helpful, Uncle Thomas." Thomas smiled, but it was a cold smile, a predator's smile. "The world is a dangerous place, Samuel, full of people who want to take advantage of the innocent. That's why you need someone like me, someone who understands how things work, someone who can protect you." They were approaching the village now. Samuel could see the familiar hills, the familiar trees, the familiar dust. "Here's what I'm thinking," Thomas continued. "Now that you're getting older, maybe it's time to make things official. I'll adopt you, become your legal guardian. That way I can make decisions on your behalf, handle the complicated stuff. You won't have to worry about anything." Samuel understood immediately. If Thomas became his legal guardian, he could access the bank account, all $12 million. "That's very generous, Uncle Thomas," Samuel said carefully. "Let me think about it." "Of course, take your time." Thomas stopped the car in front of Samuel's house. "But don't take too long. The world moves fast, and opportunities don't wait forever." Samuel got out of the car. He walked toward the house. "Samuel," Thomas called. He turned around. Thomas was leaning out the window, still smiling that cold smile. "Give my regards to your grandmother. I hope she feels better soon." The car drove away. Samuel stood in the dust, watching it disappear. He knew now that he was in danger, real danger. Thomas wasn't going to give up, and if he found out that Samuel knew the truth, Samuel didn't want to think about what might happen. He went inside to check on his grandmother. Martha was awake when Samuel came in. She was sitting up in bed, looking a little better than she had that morning. "You're back," she said. "Thank God." "I was worried." Samuel sat beside her and took her hand. "Grandma, I need to tell you something." He told her everything. The bank, Victor, Marcus, the $12 million, Thomas. By the time he finished, Martha was crying. "All this time," she whispered, "all this suffering, and the money was right there. Thomas took it from us," Samuel said. "He's been lying, planning, waiting for the right moment to steal everything." Martha's tears turned to anger. "That snake. That devil, after everything your father did for him." "It gets worse, Grandma. He just found me in the city. He offered to become my legal guardian. If he does that, he can access the money." Martha's face went pale. "You can't let him. Promise me, Samuel. Whatever happens, don't sign anything." "I won't, but we need help. Marcus is starting an investigation, but it will take time. And Thomas might not give us time." They sat in silence, thinking. "There's someone," Martha finally said. "Someone your father trusted more than anyone, a lawyer named Grace Okonkwo. She handled all of Joseph's legal work." "Where is she?" "I don't know. After your father died, she disappeared. Thomas said she moved overseas, but maybe—" Martha paused, thinking. "Maybe that was a lie too." "I'll find her," Samuel said. "I'll find her and we'll stop Thomas together." Martha squeezed his hand. "You really are your father's son." The next morning, everything changed again. Samuel woke up to the sound of screaming. He ran to his grandmother's room. The door was open. The room was destroyed. Furniture overturned. Papers scattered everywhere, and Martha was on the floor, unconscious. There was a note pinned to her dress. Samuel read it with trembling hands. "You think you can outsmart me? You think you can take what's mine? This is just the beginning. Sign the guardianship papers within 48 hours, or next time she won't wake up." Samuel's hands shook with rage and fear. Thomas had been here, in their home. He had hurt Martha. He had threatened to kill her. "Help!" Samuel screamed. "Somebody help!" The neighbors came running. They found Martha barely breathing. Someone called for the doctor. The next hour was chaos and terror. The doctor arrived and examined Martha. She was badly bruised but alive. Thomas had pushed her down and ransacked the house, looking for something. The bank documents, probably. She needs to stay calm, the doctor said. Any more stress could kill her. Samuel sat by her bed all night, holding her hand, making silent promises. He would not sign those papers. He would not let Thomas win, but he needed help, and he needed it fast. The help came the next morning in an unexpected form, a knock on the door. Samuel opened it, expecting Thomas. But it wasn't Thomas. It was a woman, tall and elegant, with silver hair and kind but fierce eyes. She wore a simple but expensive dark suit. "Samuel Ademi," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Who are you?" "My name is Grace Okonkwo. I was your father's lawyer, and I'm here to help." Samuel stared at her. How did you find us?" "I've been searching for 3 years." Grace stepped inside. "Thomas told everyone I had moved overseas. That was a lie. He forged documents, intercepted my letters, cut me off from your family completely. But yesterday, the bank flagged your account activity. I got an alert. And I came as fast as I could." She looked around the ransacked room, her jaw tightened. "Thomas was here last night. He hurt my grandmother. He's threatening to kill her if I don't sign guardianship papers." Grace's eyes hardened. "Then we don't have much time. Show me everything you have, every document, every letter, everything." They worked together all day. Grace had brought files of her own, years of evidence she had been quietly collecting. Thomas's crimes, his forged signatures, his fake documents, his connections to corrupt police officers and judges. "Your father was starting to suspect him," Grace said. "In the weeks before his death, he asked me to investigate. He never trusted Thomas completely. And then he died in a car accident," Samuel said bitterly. Grace looked at him steadily. "Your father's car had its brakes tampered with. The police ruled it an accident. But I found a mechanic who said someone paid him to damage the brake lines, someone who worked for Thomas." Samuel felt the ground shift beneath him. "Thomas killed my parents." "I believe so, but I can't prove it." "Not yet." Samuel stood up. His whole body was shaking, with rage, with grief, with a desperate need for justice. "Then we need to prove it," he said. "We need to stop him, whatever it takes." Grace nodded. "I was hoping you'd say that." The next 24 hours were the longest of Samuel's life. Grace made phone calls. She contacted journalists. She reached out to honest police officers in other districts who weren't connected to Thomas. She prepared legal documents. She built a case. Meanwhile, Samuel stayed with his grandmother, watching over her, waiting. Thomas called twice. Each time, Samuel let it go to voicemail. Each message was more threatening than the last. "Tick-tock, Samuel, time is running out. Don't think you can hide. I have friends everywhere. Last chance, boy, sign the papers or say goodbye to your grandmother forever." Samuel listened to the messages and felt nothing but cold determination. Finally, on the morning of the second day, Grace arrived with news. "It's done," she said. "I've coordinated with the federal police. They're outside of Thomas's local connections. They're going to arrest him today." "What about his people?" "His corrupt cops, being arrested too, simultaneously, all across the region." Samuel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, but it wasn't over yet. "There's one more thing," Grace said. "The police want you to help. They want Thomas to confess on record. If you agree to meet with him, wearing a wire, we can get him to admit everything. You want me to be bait. I want you to be brave, like your father was." Samuel thought about it. It was dangerous. Thomas was desperate now, capable of anything, but he thought of his grandmother, his parents, all the years of suffering. "I'll do it." The meeting was arranged for that afternoon. Samuel met Thomas at a cafe in the village. It was a public place, chosen carefully. Police were stationed nearby, disguised as regular customers. Thomas was already there when Samuel arrived. He looked confident, smug. He had no idea what was coming. "Samuel," Thomas said warmly, "I'm so glad you came to your senses." Samuel sat down across from him. Under his shirt, a tiny microphone captured every word. "I want to understand something first," Samuel said. "Why did you do it? You were my father's friend." "He trusted you," Thomas laughed. "Your father was a fool. He had all that money, all that success, and what did he do with it? Give it away, donated it, helped the poor. What a waste. He was generous. He was weak. Money is power, Samuel. And power should be used, hoarded, protected, not thrown away on ungrateful peasants. Samuel kept his voice steady. Is that why you killed him? Thomas froze. What did you say? The brakes. You had someone tamper with the brakes on his car. I know everything, Thomas. For a moment, Thomas said nothing. Then he smiled. Clever boy. Yes, I killed him and his stupid wife. They were starting to suspect me, asking questions. I couldn't let them ruin everything. And you thought you could take the money. I would have, if your father hadn't been so careful, setting up those accounts in your name, making you the primary beneficiary. I needed you. But you were just a child. I could wait. So you kept us poor, keeps us suffering, waiting for the right moment. Exactly. Thomas leaned forward. And now the moment is here. Sign the papers, Samuel. Become my ward. And I'll make sure you and your grandmother are comfortable for the rest of your lives. Samuel looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled. No. Thomas's face changed. The mask of friendliness fell away, revealing the monster beneath. What did you say? I said no, I'm not signing anything, and you're not getting a single penny of my father's money. Thomas stood up abruptly. You stupid little, Thomas Mensa, you're under arrest. Police officers appeared from everywhere. They surrounded the table. They grabbed Thomas's arms. They put him in handcuffs. Thomas struggled, screaming, cursing, but it was over. As they dragged him away, Samuel stood up and walked toward him. My father was right about one thing, Samuel said quietly. Money is power, but you know what's more powerful? The truth, and the truth always wins in the end. Thomas spat at him, but the spit fell short. The police took him away, and Samuel stood there in the afternoon sun, finally free. The weeks after Thomas's arrest were a time of healing. Martha got the best medical care money could buy. Within a month, her cough was gone, her strength was returning, and her smile was brighter than ever. Samuel enrolled in the best school in the city. It was strange at first, being surrounded by rich kids with their fancy clothes and expensive gadgets. But Samuel didn't try to impress them, he just tried to learn. And slowly, the other students came to respect him, not because of his money, but because of who he was. Grace helped manage his father's businesses until Samuel was old enough to take over. She also made sure that all the people Thomas had stolen from were compensated. It wasn't about the money, it was about justice. And Victor. Victor showed up at Samuel's new house one evening looking like a different man. His suit was simple, his watch was gone, his arrogance had been replaced by something that looked almost like humility. I sold my companies, Victor said. I'm starting a charity, helping poor children get education. I wanted you to know. Why? Samuel asked. Because of what you said to me in the bank, about how we treat people. It haunted me for weeks. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Victor paused. You changed my life, Samuel. You made me realize I was living wrong. Samuel extended his hand. Victor took it. That's all any of us can do, Samuel said. Try to live right. 1 year later, Samuel stood in front of First National Bank. He was taller now, stronger. His clothes were new but simple, nothing flashy. In his hand, he held his father's old leather wallet. He walked inside. The same marble floors, the same crystal chandeliers, the same cold air conditioning, but everything feels different now. Rebecca was still at her counter. She smiled warmly when she saw him. Marcus came down from his office. He shook Samuel's hand like an old friend, and Samuel made a deposit, not for himself, for a new foundation he was starting, the Joseph Adami Foundation. It would help orphans, widows, and struggling families across the region. It would build schools and hospitals. It would give scholarships to children who had nothing but dreams, just like his father had once had. Thank you, Mr. Adami, the teller said. Mr. Adami, just like his father. Samuel smiled. That evening he went home to his grandmother. They sat together on the porch of their new house, watching the sunset. Do you think Papa is watching? Samuel asked. Martha reached over and took his hand. I know he is, child. And I know he's proud. Samuel pulled out the old leather wallet. He looked at the photograph inside. His parents, young and smiling, with their whole lives ahead of them. I just wanted to check my balance, he said softly. And I found so much more. Martha nodded. That's the thing about life, Samuel. You never know what you'll find until you have the courage to look. The sun dipped below the horizon. The stars began to appear. And somewhere Samuel was sure his father was smiling. The story ends here, but the question stays with you. What do you value most in life? Is it money, power, status, or is it something deeper? Something that no one can take away from you, no matter how hard they try? Samuel found his answer. He found that true wealth isn't in a bank account. It's in your character, in how you treat people, in the legacy you leave behind. Take a moment and think, what will your legacy be? I hope Samuel's story helped you see things a little differently. If it did, share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. And remember, no matter how small you feel, no matter how powerless you seem, you have the ability to change the world, one act of courage at a time.